Um, my great grandma. So one day she was they lived in the mountains of BC and kind of like secluded area. And so she was in her house, I don't know, doing her normal housework and such when she felt like a really weird feeling, like something was really wrong with somebody that she really loved, and she didn't really know what to do. So, but the feeling like kept on coming back, and she kept on feeling like she should go and look for something. So she went out and she kind of went to the river, and she found that one of her children was drowning, and so it was just kind of a weird coincidence that she should feel this feeling, and then um, it would kind of lead her to the river where she found that her son had drowned.
I was crossing the street once. I was very tired that day. I had just finished my practice for my school that I was going to, and I was crossing the street and I dropped my school bus pass. So I turned around to pick it up from in the middle of the street, and then this motorcycle came from nowhere and it was about to run me over, and I froze and I didn't do anything, and I felt this hand grabbing my back and pulling me back with such force that I stepped, like almost jumped back. And I looked back immediately. I thought, well, was one of my friends that was with me at the moment, but there was no one. My friends had like walked. They were like in the middle of the next block. And I felt this hand, and the guy didn't hit me. It just hit my arm, and all my papers flew all over the place.
When I was in Mexico on family vacation with my sisters and my mom and dad, one night I woke up in the middle of the night and saw this man sitting on the edge of my bed where my sisters and I were sleeping. I was on the cot next to them. And I was just terrified. So I closed my eyes. And what seemed like forever, my sister woke up screaming all of a sudden because she felt something touch her face. So we all got up. And turned on the lights and didn't go back to sleep from then. But the man on the bed had like kind of a transparency to him.
Couple years ago, I went on a school trip to Lourdes, France, and we went to the grotto, and this is where the Virgin Mary approached Saint Bernadette, and she produced a spring there, and like since then, like millions of people have gone through the grotto and have been like healed from sicknesses and such. And I remember when I approached the grotto, I I remember like I wasn't sort of like really into it or anything. I was just because I was so tired from like the plane ride and everything. I was really hungry and everything. But then once when I approached the area, I just felt like this overwhelmingness. Like I can't even like describe it. And I just felt this peacefulness that there's a presence of like God or like the Holy Spirit or just something.
When I bought these Gypsy Fortune cards from like Chapters for fun, they ask a series of questions about your future, and they're like about love or money, etc. So the question I had asked was would I get engaged? And they had different answers, like soon, never, and time periods like 3 months, 6 months, a year. And I'd ended up getting like an answer that said like within 3 months, which I thought was ridiculous, and I thought that was funny because, first of all, I was like I was turning 17 at the time, and I, wasn't seeing anyone at all. I wasn't interested in anyone at that time. But and then I asked another question, and then it said, when would you get married? And it said very soon. So what I thought was funny about this, I thought this was ridiculous, you think it's a joke. But what ended up happening was I actually ended up meeting someone, and I didn't know, but he would actually end up being my future husband. In fact, we got engaged within 3 months, and we ended up getting married very shortly after we'd been engaged. So I guess it was right.
When my grandfather was younger, living at his family farm in Saskatchewan, he shared a room with his brother, who was younger than him, 16 at the time. one day his brother didn't come home from hanging out with his friends, and they found out that he had drowned in the local pond. A week after this incident, my grandfather said he woke up in the middle of the night and he saw his brother standing at the foot of his bed, dripping wet and just pointing towards the closet. So my grandfather got out of bed and looked in the closet, and at the back he found a shoebox that he hadn't seen before. And when he opened the shoebox, he found a life insurance policy that his brother had taken out a week before he passed away.
Me and one of my best friends were at his place, and we were in his backyard on his deck, and we were facing his lawn, and out of kind of nowhere, we were just talking, and out of nowhere, from behind us, we heard someone walking up behind us on the deck, and we turned around and looked, and there was nobody there, but there was still the sound of somebody walking towards us on the deck, and both of us kind of looked at each other, and the sound dissipated as it got closer to us, and we both just kind of looked at each other and didn't know exactly what to think at all. It was pretty overwhelming because I'd never really encountered something that crazy before, because there was two people there witnessing it, and we both heard it.
When I grew up, had children, one day I had a dream. I had a little girl who was, how old was Christy? Christy would have been about 3. And we were to go and visit my parents. They lived out in the country. And, well, it was great to go visit there. But I had a dream at night that Christy was standing on the edge of a really deep pit. It scared the living daylights out of me. I don't think anybody would have been happy with that kind of dream. Obviously, in the dream, she didn't fall or anything. But I knew that I had to call my father because that pit was located just outside their dining room. So I called my dad and I asked him, I said, is there a big hole outside of your dining room? And he said, yeah. He said, that's the old well, and we've got it dug up right now, and it's sitting there open. And I said, well, we're going to be there in about 4 weeks. You had better do something about that well, because I had a dream that Christy was standing on the edge of the well. Well, I guess he really flipped. Anyway, he covered the well, we came home, everything was fine.
When I lived in Virginia, I went out to walk my dog the one night, and on the street it was like a really rainy night, so it was really foggy out, and I saw across the street this other person walking down the street, and they were walking their dog. And as they walked further down the street, they kind of got fuzzy and disappeared into a tree. And that's sort of when I realized they weren't actually there, that it was more of just an apparition thing.
When I was younger, my sister and I used to do like random stuff, but I wasn't really into anything when it came to Wicca or stuff like that. But I was still fairly interested in the culture, and I knew my sister was really getting into it. And then one day, I heard my sister, and she was really, really upset, and I wanted to know what was going on. And I came to her, and she had told me that during the night she was doing something, and she didn't want to clarify what it was specifically, but I knew it scared the hell out of her. And then I found out that during the night when she was sleeping, it sounded as if there was a horde of cats outside, like hundreds of cats. And in our culture, cats signify, oh, what's it? Cats, or was it birds? No, it was cats, I think. And it was just hundreds of them. And I know in my mother, it was like, in our culture, they signify not a good thing. It's like bad spirits coming around. And there were hundreds of them, and she could hear them, and it was scaring the hell out of her, and she didn't know what to do, and it sounded like they were going to try to come into the room, and they were clawing at the window. And so then my mother, she woke up to my sister basically not screaming, but she just knew, my mom knew that something was wrong in the middle of the night, and she came down, and together they were like holding each other, and I guess trying to pray and like cleanse the room and cleanse the area and cleanse the spirit of, I guess, whatever was my sister was accidentally bringing in. And then close to daybreak, it sounded as if birds came in, and they had almost like scared off the cats, and that there was like hundreds of birds there singing in place of the cats. And yeah, that's